Part 1, Totino's Activity Pack Super Bowl Commercial 2015. It's January 31st, 2015, and SNL airs this new skit called Totino's Activity Pack Super Bowl Commercial, which opens up on a collection of hungry guys watching the game while an unnamed wife delivers Totino's pizza rolls to her husband and his friends before returning to the kitchen. We are led to understand this is a regular occurrence, a natural dynamic where the wife waits in the kitchen silently, othered with no agency. This time, though, she has a Totino's activity pack to help stimulate her mind and keep her from boredom. The system has allowed her a simple pleasure to keep her appeased. But the activities are also designed to be dropped at a moment's notice, and the wife must always be ready to serve her hungry guys. Okay, let's go back for a sec, because what does any of this mean? Well, at the start of the sketch, the wife has no personhood for all intents and purposes. She is not named, and our only understanding of her, along with her only understanding of herself, is through the role of a wife, a woman who engages in the reproductive labor of a household. You know, folding the laundry, doing the dishes, housekeeping stuff.
That's great!
The husband of the sketch is also unnamed, but we know so much more about him nearly instantaneously. He has community, he likes football and beer, and he likes Totinos. We only see the wife serve the husband, both literally and figuratively, and become infantilized by the activity pack, which shares a lot of similarities with a children's dollar store activity pack.
Look, honey, it's a little bee.
Yeah, we're also out of beers when you get a second.
The wife must both be omnipresent and available to address her husband's every need, while at the same time remaining invisible and unbothersome the rest of the time. One of the husband's friends actually asks him if the wife would like to join them and watch the game.
Does your wife want to watch the game with us?
And the husband dismisses the suggestion.
No, she's good. She's got her little activity pack.
Besides, the wife wouldn't actually enjoy the game with all those burly men in tights trying to get on top of each other. Her role is one relegated to the kitchen, and even in her leisure, she must always host and act as the keeper of the home. From the age she was conscious of her performance of gender to her death, she's taken on this role, this performance. All in all, at the end of this first commercial, we find the wife's position in this home, a home which mirrors the homes we know as an audience, very unappealing. Part 2, Totino's 2016. It's a year later, February 6, 2016, and SNL airs another skit simply titled Totino's. The roles are exactly the same to start. The hungry guys are watching the game, they're shouting, and the wife is promoting Totino's pizza rolls. This time, though, instead of the hungry guys acknowledging the presence of the wife, they keep yelling at the game on TV. The horror sinks in when the wife brings the pizza rolls, that thing only the wife can supposedly provide the hungry guys, and she finds there is nothing on TV.
There's nothing on the TV.
This time, the hungry guys are the ones that have completely lost themselves in the roles they are playing. They know it is their job to view, but they aren't sure what they're supposed to be viewing. They've become lost in each other's energies and expectations until there's nothing but the performance. The hungry guy no longer has a proper space to occupy in society. Only the rules for a system that no longer exists. Terrified, the mother calls for her children.
Brittany, get in the car!
Planning to drive away until the hungry guys tell her,
No, 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 no. Oh, fumble.
and the commercial ends. Let's take a step back real quick. So first, we have the wife and the husband in a very simple, average mid-century relationship. We expect that the wife is set to engage in reproductive labor as a wife, and the husband hosts his friends while the men take on positions of viewers, even as the wife does all of the hosting work. This is all pretty cut and dry because we live in a society, and that society is a patriarchy where we expect women to perform and men to observe the performance. If you have any doubts about this, talk to a woman for just a couple of minutes, or look at any old painting by a man, and now suddenly you're on your way to a gender studies degree.
Feminism isn't exactly what I'd call a career.
It's not my career, it's a lens.
Sketch 2. Remember how I said we expect women to perform and men to observe that performance? Well, that's only half true, because remember, we live in a society, which means men are also performing that role of observer. It is at this point in the saga where a metaphor starts to take shape. The Totino becomes this representation of desire, an experience which the wife can offer the hungry guys, but they cannot produce themselves. The hungry guys aren't able to accept the wife as a human being with desires and partnership because they are stuck in their performance as viewers, observers. At the end of the sketch, the hungry guys aren't able to escape this role, and everyone is miserable. It is at this point where we are supposed to understand masculinity in its current hegemonic form as bad and existing in a structure which not only harms and limits the possibility of femininity, but also masculinity. The sketches leave us with this brief summary of the issues of patriarchy in a white suburban environment, which needs some useful, quick solution. The Saga finale does offer this, following one of the strategies some feminists followed during the second wave. Which brings us to the final sketch. Part 3, Totino's with Kristen Stewart 2017. Totino's with Kristen Stewart opens up the same as the other sketches in the trilogy. The hungry guys are watching the game, this time with chips and dip in front of them. And the hungry guys quickly dismiss the wife to the kitchen. The wife sets the scene, explaining why she needs to make Totino's, and Dave runs through the door with a bag of chips for the big game. The husband yells out to his wife that they need more Totino's as Ted walks in with his sister, and the wife is excited to engage with Ted's sister as another passive subject relegated to the reproductive work of making Totino's, until the wife lays her eyes on Ted's sister, and immediately romantic music begins to play. Ted's sister introduces herself as Sabine.
I'm Sabine.
And asks the wife for her name, which she replies,
I've never had one.
The two women begin arranging the pizza rolls until the wife says
I should bring these out.
to the hungry guys. Sabine tells her to stay with her, and suddenly the wife feels seen in a way she hasn't before. Not as a performer, but as a lover. They share this connection through tender scenes while the hungry guys do nothing but look ahead at the game. The Totinos not as pressing a priority as the performance of viewing. The actual desire of the Totinos not as important as appearing to desire those Totinos. The screen could be black again for all we care. The wife and Sabine lay on the floor together, and the wife says in French, my husband has his Totinos, and you are my Totino. For one last time, the husband asks what's taking the Totinos so long, wondering if the women are making out.
You girls making out back there?
Which offers some laughs from the guys, but the women are still there, on the floor, free from the performance and expectations of their gender in an act beyond political lesbianism into the freedom love and desire provides one. Sabine offers the wife a way to be without men, a way to second wave feminist freedom. And the sketch ends. Part 4, Heteropessimism. Outside of the Totino saga, when a woman engages in a same-sex relationship outside of romantic or sexual desire, it is called political lesbianism. Because men are linked to the assigned role of the oppressor within patriarchy, there is no way to complete the goal of second-wave radical feminism to secure gender equality and equity for women with the oppressor present, with men present. The solution? Become lesbians, or at the very least feminist women who have very little to no sex and begin little separatist communes forever. To pull in the Totino's metaphor, why would you enter a relationship where your purpose is to offer up Totino's, again, this need for and of desire, for a partner who cannot offer Totino's back to you in return when there are others who make Totino's for each other? Why would you engage in heterosexuality and be at service to someone else's needs and desires in a strictly one-way relationship if you knew of another option? On Heteropessimism, the essay by Asa Seresin begins with a quote from Maggie Nelson's The Argonauts. Heterosexuality always embarrasses me. Seresin then goes on to talk about a moment she asked Nelson about the quote in which she recontextualized the meaning to be, my heterosexuality always embarrasses me. Either way, Nelson and people who find themselves attracted to men recognize the desire behind the political lesbians. Before they are a lover or a partner, a man is a man and thus holds specific political privileged identity, which feminism opposes. The two solutions are then to seek out this lesbian separatist utopia separate from oppression, or understand modern feminism as a failure. And since we've already tried the separatist thing, and it doesn't really address racism or other forms of continued alienation based on intersectional marginalized identities, let's explore the failure perspective. Recently, I've become a bit Andrea Long-Chu pilled, and I've read a few of her critical works in hopes of fixing feminism, because separatism doesn't seem like it addresses the problem of the other, and I really want to address the problem of the other. So Here are the top 3 reasons why feminism sucks now, according to Andrea Long-Chu. 1. We are stuck in a narrative of the past. We did a whole bunch of stuff in the 20th century, and we really like talking about all the things we did. 2. Feminists don't do things now. Leftists, progressives, protesters do things, and feminist, the person who practices feminism, is almost a religious role now. Because of our history, because of our theory, because of feminist waves, we have become lost in a mythology of saints like Margaret Sanger, or Susan B. Anthony, or Robin Morgan. The problem with our saints is that they are people and kinda suck sometimes. Sanger was an advocate for forced sterilization, and bigotry of every single kind is present in nearly every mainstream feminist movement led by white women. 3. Feminism doesn't mean anything, because it means everything. Our practice has always been out of line of our theory, of our dreams, and so instead of asshole anti-feminists, we've come up with different terms and names for groups like TERFs. I can easily call myself a feminist, and that gives you almost no information about my politics. By including everyone in the movement, there is now no more movement. Just a collection of labels and memes anyone can enact. In response, we've moved on to different words, different identities, because while you can be a Republican feminist in the United States, you sure as hell can't be a Republican progressive. In the words of Bell Hooks from Feminism is for Everyone, advancing the notion that there can be many feminisms has served the conservative and liberal political interests of women seeking status and privileged power. Now, this doesn't mean all strands of feminism are bad, but that it would have been more useful if feminism grew in depth rather than expanded into a million different schools. If feminism as a movement accepted the philosophies of Black radical thought, trans liberation, disability advocacy, glitch feminism, mad rights, and the agencies of all the other marginalized identities I haven't named. If we considered and discussed and debated the boundaries of its ideology, feminism would be a stronger, clearer politic. Instead, our most famous feminists are either interested in service level change or are bad, actually. Long-Chu explores the relationship between all of these failures in a framework of disappointment. The feminist mythology, in her words, goes, something went wrong in feminism then, and in almost every case, it falls to the feminist now to make things right. Except, if things don't radically change, if we are not able to make things right, it doesn't really matter to the identity of the feminist because feminism is not a politic anymore. It's a desire not dependent for its sense, force, or direction on anything in the world at all. It is easy to long for something more, but difficult to put it into practice. We see how the natural connection between the wife and Sabine is, but the wife doesn't just inhabit the identity of wife as a woman. She is also, at the very least, a mother that is shown to care for her children in Totino's 2016.
Brittany, get in the car!
We have to believe she is more than what we see. We don't know if the wife stays with her husband after her encounter with Sabine, but I think she does. I think even if it's torture, the wife will stay for her children because she is comfortable with this role she's held in the same way over the course of 3 years of commercials. To quote Long-Chu again, she stayed because she wanted to. 6 words in which 50 years of feminism disintegrates like sweetener into coffee. All the wife needs is to be needed, to be desired, and to meet that desire with Totino's. The husband doesn't change over these years. His position of desire is consistent. And the wife, again to quote Long-Chu, she is not destroyed, she is disappointed. But what disappoints her is not the last instance, the man who's failing to be what she wants. What disappoints her is the stamina of her own desire, the surprising durability of her optimism. Let me believe, she pleads with him. Let me believe heterosexuality isn't a lost cause. Let me believe that feminism is possible. Let me believe in a world beyond disappointment. Let me believe we will save our planet. Let me believe we will fix our political systems. Let me believe people are good. Let me believe we can love. Let me believe we can change. Part 5. Optimism. Feminism doesn't work because it hasn't worked. Because we are still working on it. Because true separatism doesn't stop at leaving your husband. It proceeds to paranoid rigor to purge the apartments of the mind of anything remotely connected to patriarchy. Desire is no exception. Political lesbianism is founded on the belief that even desire becomes pliable at high enough temperatures. Because to be above desire, to banish it from our politics, is to limit our humanity. But there is still a desire that word feminism clings to. In university, I held a student job where I acted as this touchstone person for diversity, equity, and inclusion programming on my campus. I hated that this position existed, but I held it for 2 years and enjoyed the work I did. The hatred, which I shared with a lot of my coworkers and some supervisors, was always held because we wanted to be a campus where diversity education was a given value among the employees and students we worked with. We desired to live in a world that was better than our own, and the only thing to do other than daydream was manifest and enact that desire. But by the end of my tenure, seeing how little difference my position made on the campus climate, I was no longer longing for a feminist environment. I just wanted to be rid of this desire for the impossible. Call this the romance of disappointment. You want something. You have found an object that will give you what you want. This object is a person or a politics or an art form or a blouse that fits. You attach yourself to this object, follow it around, carry it with you, watch it on TV. One day you tell yourself it will give you what you want. Then one day it doesn't. Now it dawns on you that your object will probably never give you what you want. But this is not what's disappointing. Not really. What's disappointing is what happens next. Nothing. You keep your object. Continue to follow it around. Stash it in the drawer. Water it. Tweet at it. It still doesn't give you what you want. But you knew that. You have another realization. Not getting what you want has very little to do with wanting it. Knowing better usually doesn't make it better. You don't want something because wanting it will lead to getting it. You want it because you want it. This is the zero-order disappointment that structures all desire and makes it possible. After all, if you could only want things you were guaranteed to get, you would never be able to want anything at all. A year after the completion of the SNL Totino saga, author Kodama Naoko released her short manga, I Married My Best Friend to Shut My Parents Up. The novella follows Machi Morimoto as she enters a civil partnership with her best friend Hana Agaya to shut her parents up. While their relationship begins in this space of performative necessity, Machi soon develops feelings for Hana and finds a renewed sense of self-worth, agency, and desire through their partnership. Of course, there's this third act conflict, but through it, Machi is able to identify this disappointment in herself and in her actions, along with this desire to love and keep Hana. Machi develops this fear of disappointing Hana, and through this fear, discovers, pursues, and shares her desire for her. When they make their relationship real, Machi and Hana accept the fear of disappointment, of disappointing each other, but they also know this risk of failure is worth it. The other name for disappointment, after all, is love. I don't blame the wife for staying with her husband. I can't when the things I devote myself to fail just the same. We desire the manifestation of our desires. The wife desires to be known and seen as something beyond her Totinos, to be seen and desired as a person. I desire to live in a world where identities are not value markers, where we do not need feminists. I desire to live in a world beyond feminism. I would like feminism to do something, to mean something in the present, but I'm nearly convinced the era of feminist action has passed. If a movement cannot extend beyond online or academic arguments and communities, then is it a movement or a subject?
It's not my career, it's a lens.
I mean, define feminism again in a way that encapsulates this present fight for gender equality and doesn't leave out anyone who calls themselves feminists. Should feminism include everyone who calls themselves feminists? Are TERFs feminist? Feminism at present is a game, a set of politics sifted through until nearly everyone can get and laugh at the sexism the wife encounters in the SNL Totino's trilogy. It's such a strong cultural meme, but feminism's current fractures paired with our hopes for it allows for such an intense desire for the fantasy of just one more tweak and we'll get it right. Feminism is like Christianity in this way. We want to mythologize and edit a past, make people into arbiters of divine truth, but we are still people. And we do good and we do bad, and that is the truth. But the truth cannot mobilize like an idea, like a politic. And this is what the term feminist offers. We want to believe it has meaning, even if we have to add adjectives before the label. We are feminists because we want to be. The question is how to make adjustments in fantasies without totally breaking them, or how to survive a shift from one fantasy to another, or sometimes just how to survive the fantasy you're already in. Feminism's being impossible doesn't keep us feminists from wanting it. That's hopeful in a disappointing kind of way, but it's the closest I'm going to get to performing the perfunctory optimism of the final paragraph. If you like, we can call it the impossibility of not feminism. I do not want to desire solutions. I want the solutions to be in practice already. But because that is impossible, I want feminism to do something, to mean something. I want feminism to succeed and destroy itself. And I want to engage in the fruition of this desire. Still shit.